Chris Ferris Show. Hey, welcome back, guys. As we take the next few episodes, we've been talking about marriage. How do we have a healthy relationship? So many people operating, functioning in dysfunctional homes, dysfunctional relationships, dysfunctional marriages. And I got to tell you guys, I just don't believe that that's God's best. I believe he has a better way. Now, for many of us, as we've said before, we just didn't have and don't have the tools to operate. We were taught wrong. We were educated in not in great environments, and we are nothing more than the sum total of our education in a lot of these matters. But what does it mean? How do we come to the place where we are actually living and operating in a healthy relationship? How do we break some of these generational curses and teach our kids how to move on and to live and to have healthy relationships? Last episode we talked about finding unity, walking in unity 100% of the time, and why does that matter? If you haven't seen that one, you got to go back and check it out. We're just going to kind of build on these over the course of the next few weeks. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of setting expectations, what we call realistic expectations. Remember I said in last episode, we said that two unhealthy people never come together and make a healthy whole. A healthy marriage is not predicated on counseling and a lot of good books and a lot of boxes that we check. A healthy marriage is predicated on the individuals in the marriage being individually healthy. In fact, if the individuals are healthy, then the marriage as a byproduct is healthy. It's a thriving marriage. We're not just striving, trying to save the marriage. It's actually thriving and growing. But one of the biggest hindrances to this is the unrealistic expectations that are set in marriage. Now let's just talk about this for a moment. Because a lot of the expectations that we have in a relationship were first desires, right? I think all of us probably had a picture in our mind about what the relationship or our relationship was going to look like when we got married. Perhaps it was, you were seeing it through the lenses of your mom and dad, whether good or bad. Like, I will never do this, I'll make sure I do this, or make sure I have this. Or maybe it was a really good relationship and you are seeing, or the desires that you have are being seen through the lenses of the good relationship that you were exposed to growing up. But we have these desires in our life, and I don't know when this happens, but at some point those desires move into expectations. Now, here's what's dangerous about expectations. If they're irrational or disproportionate, if they're unrealistic, we're doing a couple things. Number one, we're setting up our partner for failure, and we're setting ourselves up for resentment. In fact, I want you to write this down if you're journaling, that unrealistic expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. Let me say it again. Unrealistic expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. In other words, I've placed this unrealistic expectation on the relationship. You don't even have the capacity. The reason it's unrealistic is because you probably maybe don't have the capacity to even really fulfill that expectation. So I've set you up for failure, and I've set myself up for the resentment. So how do we avoid this? Well, there's a couple things that I think are important in this conversation that we sort of unpack and contextualize for our specific, our marriage, for our relationship. So I want to kind of get a board, get a piece of paper, a whiteboard. I don't care how you do it, but I want you to on this whiteboard, I want you to draw a line right down the middle. On the left-hand side of that, I want you to write the word expectations. Right? Expectations. On the right side of that line, I want you to write the word proper arrangements. Proper arrangements. Now let me explain the difference. Expectations are things that we have communicated together, we have agreed upon together, and we're moving forward in unity on these things. See, an unrealistic expectation is something, couple things. I've placed an expectation on my spouse that that she or he doesn't have the capacity to fulfill, or I've placed this expectation based on something I was educated in, something I saw in my past, the lenses that I have about relationship, and I never really declared it. We didn't really come to an agreement. We never really talked about it. I just expected it to be. I expected my dinner. I grew up in a home where mom had the dinner ready when dad came home from work, had a glass of tea waiting for him when he came in, sat down in his easy chair. That's the expectation that I have for a relationship. Now, we've never talked about it. I've never declared it. I've never said anything. I just had this expectation. And when it didn't happen, anger, fighting, resentments, all that stuff begins to happen. A rational, realistic expectation is one that we have sat down and we've talked about. We've had a conversation around it. My wife and I, by the way, only have 5. We have 5 expectations that we have talked about, that we have agreed upon, that we have declared, and we have set in our home. Number 1, God is first in everything. God is first in everything. Number 2, our recovery principles, the principles that we live our life by, we will always be living and practicing, actively living out our recovery, actively living out our principles. That's number 2. Number 3, never lie. Number 4, never cheat. Number 5, always respect. Those are our 5 expectations. Now, I want you to understand, I talk to people all the time about this, like, well, I think I need to have some more. Do whatever you need to do. Have whatever expectation. You can have a list of 10, you have 20. It doesn't matter. The point isn't how many expectations you have. The point is, are they realistic? Have you communicated them? And are you moving in unity on them? Is it something that you've come together on? So whether you have 5 or 25 is irrelevant. Have you had conversation around? Now watch this. Once those expectations are determined, we don't apply any other expectations to that list unless we've communicated it, unless we've talked about it. Listen, I mean it. We sat down and had this conversation. We talked about this. We declared these collectively and said, these are our 5. And so once we established those and once we put those down on paper, we went to the other side and said, now let's talk about our proper arrangements. What is a proper arrangement? Well, this is something that we have also communicated and we've also talked about that doesn't carry the weight of an expectation, but it sets up an infrastructure in how we operate in the home. So let me give you an example. I absolutely love to cook. I love to cook. I think I'm kind of good at it. My family thinks I'm good at it. I enjoy being in the kitchen. And it's just a fun thing for me to do. I love coming home from work, leaving the office, getting home around 4:30, 5 o'clock, firing up stuff in the kitchen, and going to town. We do a lot of things around that time. Together as a family, it's fun. So we set a proper arrangement that I would take care of meals in the home, that I would cook. Trish, my wife, absolutely cannot stand a dirty kitchen. It is like an OCD thing. I mean, she can stack that dishwasher like she's played Tetris professionally. Absolutely mind-blowing. In fact, there are times when I'm like cooking, I'm like in the middle of cooking, she's washing dishes. I'm like, yo, hey, chill for a minute. I'm still using that knife, or I need that pan. So here's a proper arrangement that we set up. I will do the cooking in the house because I love it, and she hates a dirty kitchen. She said, well, you know what? Then I'll just take care of the kitchen. Now, I don't have an expectation. If that kitchen isn't clean, we are having a conversation. We're going and, we're fighting, whatever. That's not the case, because the proper arrangement doesn't carry the weight of the expectation. It's just something that we've agreed on as far as the operation of our home on a daily basis. We don't ever have to, we never talk about it because we've already set it up as a proper arrangement. Now, here's what's interesting. We have a few little ones in the house now, a couple little ones. And nighttime, bedtime becomes a little bit of a stressor, right? There's some tension there. 3-year-old that doesn't want to go to bed. Sometimes she doesn't have the capacity to get to that kitchen right away after I've cooked. She's taking care. She's putting November down. And I, for some reason, am not or couldn't, whatever the case may be. I'll get to that one in just a moment. But I'll go in the kitchen. I'll do it for her. Why? Because I don't have an expectation for her to do it. There's times when she's like, hey, I want to throw something together. I want to cook. Go for it. I don't have she doesn't have an expectation of me to cook. It's just a proper arrangement. It's something we had a conversation about. One of the things that we do with putting the kids down, we talked about this as a proper arrangement. I do it sometimes, but Trish usually goes up, gives the kids a bath, brushes their teeth, puts them down at night. She puts them down in the evening time. I'm the morning guy. I get up early. I'm up 4:30, sometimes earlier in the morning. November happens to be, our little 3-year-old happens to be an early riser. She's down there ready to rock and roll. Well, I spend the mornings with her. So we discussed this. We had a conversation. Hey, I'll let you sleep in a little bit, get some rest in the morning. I'll take care of the morning functioning by myself, right? But we had a conversation about, we conversed. Now, what does this do? This is so important. What this does, guys, is it takes away, there's no need to ever fight. There's no need to ever we don't have to constantly be wondering what's happening in the home. You say, Christian, that sounds like a lot of work. It is. It is. But guess what? It works if you work it. If you put the time, the energy, does it matter to you? If it doesn't matter, then let the whole freaking thing fall apart. But if it really matters, you're going to want to put the work in. It does take work. But once you start to do this, guess what happens? Proper arrangements becomes the new conversation. Instead of fighting, instead of arguing about it, instead of going into the silent treatment mode and people sleeping in different rooms, instead of that happening, our conversation is, when there's tension, is what are we going to do going forward? What is our new proper arrangement? Quick little story. We were traveling in North Carolina visiting my parents. Our little 3-year-old has a tendency to get sick, not so much now, but when she was 2, she would get sick when we were driving, especially on those winding roads. We had a big day planned. We were heading out to do some things. We were winding down all these roads to get to our destination. November begins to throw. She's puking all over the car. It was just a freaking train wreck. I am pissed. I'm mad, angry. I had to pull over, get to a grocery store to go in and get wipes, and we couldn't find our wipes, and there was no paper. It was a mess. Throw up all over our 17-year-old daughter, and I mean, it was just everywhere. It was a big old mess. I lose my cool. I'm angry. I'm like, I can't believe what our whole date. We couldn't get to where we were going because we were covered in this mess. We get back in the car and we're heading back to the house, and it's super quiet, as you can imagine. And I said, are we not going to talk about this? And watch what happened. Trish said, well, let's go back to our expectation list. Number 5 is always respect. What just happened here was extremely disrespectful. There was no respect in this moment. Now, I had an opportunity to continue to be a dick, or to focus on swallow my pride and my ego and go, you know what? You were being a dick. You were being disrespectful. You were not living up to that expectation. And so you need to apologize. You need to make an amends to your family. Swallowed my pride. And I said, hey, guys, you know what? You're right. She's right. I did not live up to the expectation that we agreed on. I was disrespectful. I apologize. Now, guess what we did after that? We receive it. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. Whatever. Then the next question was, what is going to be our new proper arrangement going forward? Well, the new proper arrangement is we don't travel anywhere without a puke bag. Now, that may sound stupid and silly to you, but for us, that was a tension that was solved. Guess what we never have to do ever? We never talk about it again, because we have a proper arrangement in place in moving forward. There's always going to be tension in relationship. It's unavoidable. If you don't think you're going to have tension, you're nuts. You're not married. That's why you think that. But anyone who's in a married relationship knows there's going to be tension. Do we fight about it? Do we holler, scream, interrupt our peace? Do we go to silence, where we give everybody the silent treatment? Or maybe we flip the script on this. And we say, okay, what is going to be our new proper arrangement? So you got to sit down, have the conversation, put the line down the paper. Expectations over here, we talk about them, we agree on them, we're going to move forward in them. Everything else that we do will be a proper arrangement. I don't care if it's who takes the kids to school, or who makes the bed in the morning, who clean. It doesn't matter. Just talk about all of it. And when there's tension, don't fight over the tension. Remember, if we fight to win, the relationship ends. If we fight for solution, there's always resolution. Find out what it is what is our proper arrangement going to be going forward? Guess what? You never have to do again. You never have to raise your voice. You never have to have a disrespectful word. You never have to fight. There doesn't have to be any fighting. The tension is good because it's opportunity to move into a new arrangement. Hope you guys will try this. I hope you'll practice it. I hope you'll live it out. I can tell you from experience, personal experience, it absolutely works. It profoundly changes the way you see your relationship and your marriage. God bless, guys.